Alrighty, check one, check one. Good morning, bears, and non-bears, and never bears, and almost bears. Welcome to you all on this morning of September the 11th, 2020. The day that we celebrate the greatest psychological operation ever to take place on these shores. Changed a lot of the way the world is. That could be a whole show itself. So things are going really good. I went to Eureka Springs, and El Scorpio, you're right. It is a place where the dumpster pumpers gather. The bathhouse concept in general, it's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. It's like we had so much wealth at some point that these whole cities developed around the concept of hot baths and massages, and just a clear sign of the leisure class that existed at some point that doesn't exist anymore, because these bathhouses are more or less just relics from an old time and places for dumpster pumpers to gather. Especially these very liberal towns. I mean, they run the place. You really can just drive through. You shouldn't stop for very long. You'll get touched inappropriately at one point or another. But then I went on to further northwest Arkansas, met up with my brother's family. And that was really good. And was I able to introduce the concept of Beartaria to them? Yes, I was. I was indirectly, and I didn't even have to try. Because my brother he knows that I've always been about the homestead dream, the homestead life. And he's always been more or less ambivalent towards it. But during this visit, he just started mentioning it, like, how close are you and Blaze getting to having a homestead? Because, you know, me and Rachel, we're really thinking that's the way to go these days. And I was just like, oh, you mean Beartaria? And he was like, Beartaria? And I said, yeah, you know, it's the network of homesteads and people that care about, you know, the core principle of civilization and the preservation of family and whatnot. I didn't even have to bring in religion or any kind of ideology. You know, he just talked about it like that, and they were like, whoa, yeah, that sounds exactly like what we need in our lives. Because then, being liberals in a small town, you know, and connected to the world through the internet these days, like we all are, they're finding themselves increasingly isolated. Because they've rebelled from religion. Both of them grew up highly religious, and they've rebelled from that. So they went hard left, but now they're seeing really that there's no unity in the left. So, like I said, they're finding themselves more and more socially and ideologically isolated. And family and community and independence from the establishment just comes to your mind more and more the more isolated you feel. I mean, we all know it. And so they're feeling it like everyone else. And so it's just natural that the concept of Beartaria would appeal to them. So, yeah, we just talked about the homestead a lot and what it would take for all of our families to function in one place together. And that is the beginning of the future, for my family at least. Also, Carl Stanton, you made some comment about indoctrinating the children. And yeah, I was slowly indoctrinating them a little bit. You know, they've grown up on Narnia and all the Disney fantasy lands and Wakanda. They all believe in Wakanda because they've been taught it's real. So they might as well start hearing about Bertaria while they're young, because it's going to be the subject of their lives if I have anything to do with it. And then Alan Powell, the greatest troll ever. Alan Powell, I do appreciate you. You said that you found this channel fascinating because I'm crazy and I don't know where the line between reality and fantasy is. And I would just say I'm willing to admit there might be a line between the two, but for me or for you to know or point out to someone else where that line is an exercise in futility. You can put a line anywhere in creation and say, well, you can't put a line anywhere in creation, in the physical creation, and say this side is reality and that side's not. And to pretend that you can put a line somewhere in my mind or your mind and say this side is reality and this side is fantasy, that's an argument you can make, but I think you'll have a hard time concluding it. The kingdom and God, they're the context of my reality. My reality is not defined outside of God. It is a random series of coincidences, unless I have an overarching canopy of ultimate reality that I call God and the kingdom that makes my daily life make sense. This is more or less what it means to be a Christian. It's like my brother and his wife, they want the kingdom, but they don't want a king. While every time we were talking about Bertaria, they were real careful to listen if I was going to bring any religion into the equation, or if I was going to bring any ideology or any authoritarianism, which I do believe in, but I didn't bring them up because our honoring the family is honoring God. That God is the Father. And it takes people a long time to recognize that. Because you either live in a world where you define it as coincidence, or you live in a world where everything has meaning. And this goes back to the whole mask debate, which I was lucky enough not to get into with anyone, although they tried. And I went to Walmart with my mom and my sister, and I didn't wear a mask, and my sister was horrified and almost traumatized, and I almost had to be like, go walk 20 feet behind me if you're going to act all crazy. Because she was like, if anybody says anything, I don't know you. If anybody says anything, I'm out of here. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. But Walmart, has established they're backing off the mask policy because profits are more important than safety to them. And because a bunch of good old boys said, either you believe this thing is real, and if you believe it's real, you'll close all your stores, or it's just a case of the sniffles, and I can come in here and shop. You came into my little town, you shut down all the mom and pop shops, and now you're telling me I have to wear a dirty sock on my face to come and get my stuff. And they're just like, that's just not how it works. And Walmart said, okay, we'd rather have your money than your compliance. And so I didn't have to wear a mask at Walmart, but it still freaked them out. Anyway, getting back to the house, we didn't have the big debate about how real the Karunu is. Because at this point, I think it's just very established within the family. It's like some people believe the experts. They believe that there's an expert class from which truth is derived from. And they believe that the intelligentsia, the intelligent people of the society, believe this managerial expert class. And they believe it is the crazy ones who don't believe them. And that's just the way it is. And so, in effect, we're all wearing or not wearing the mask for the same reason. We think it's the right thing to do. And so that's just established in the family. Colin doesn't wear a mask. Because it's just, and it's, we don't argue about it, and there's no dissonance because they just understand Colin trusts other sources, other non-internet sources, more than we trust our internet sources. That's all there is to it. All right. That's about all I got time for right now. But 9/11, going to talk more about the Graveler Wars, more about suicide. We're going to have a really heavy talk soon. Because, yeah, Miss Canine Bear, I appreciate all your comments. And Miss Prayer Bear, I appreciate you being around for obvious reasons. It sounds like you've had a very interesting upbringing, Miss Canine Bear. And you're right. The reasons for suicide shouldn't even be contemplated. They are too incomprehensible to try to sum up, and so varied that it's almost useless to try to be specific about it. But for my type, who was more or less dipped in sin to protect us from sin, it's innocence and purity is a hard thing to come back to. And I think that's the main reason. So I think my kind's being stalked by something real. But that just might be my imagination trying to turn the whole situation into a Philip K. Dick story. But more about that later. In the meantime, keep crushing, and I'll talk to you soon.